4 years ago, I made a review on Resident Evil 7, questioning if it should even be called a Resi game, and my answer was mixed. It didn't feel like Resident Evil, not in the slightest, although it was a solid horror game that I genuinely enjoyed to the end. We got what we wanted, and that was for Resi to return to its horror roots, but we didn't exactly get Resident Evil. It did try to tie into the original story, I feel like, but it wasn't beating you in the head that it is. It was trying to be its own thing, new story, new characters, new virus, new everything, yet still a faint taste and nods to the series as we know it. It was still very damn fun to play, and it even gave us an absolute banger of a theme song. It's a good mixed bag of negative and positive views. I myself am in the middle, but I love the game. Cut to today, and we got a continuation of Ethan and Mia's story. Resident Evil 8, or simply just called Village, is a direct sequel to Resident Evil 7. And if you guys thought that Resident Evil 7 didn't feel like Resident Evil, hoo boy! Capcom sure did show us that they can make a Resident Evil game feel nothing like Resident Evil. Seriously, we bitched too hard with Resident Evil 7. Capcom literally took 8 and was like, I'll turn this damn series around. That'll end your precious Resident Evil damn quick. So as you can probably tell, we have the same problem with this new installment feeling like RE. The trailer dropped for this game for the first time, and we were hit with some Van Helsing shit. Werewolves, big vampire lady, totally out of place for RE. Although there was zombie monkeys in Zero, so maybe not too random. Still, it could have just been called Village, and it would have suited it more. I think I said the same thing about 7 being called something completely different, and people wouldn't bitch as much. But I think I'm gonna bitch a lot about 8. I'm not gonna be as merciful to this game. Little warning, there's spoilers ahead, and if you love this game, you don't want to hear me bitch about it, or be incorrect about something, then this probably won't be the video for you. So that being said, I'm back, and I'm here to review and give my thoughts on Resident Evil Village. So I could easily tell y'all how I feel and do a really quick review here. I don't know why I can't. I probably should, because this is gonna be... If y'all know anything about Nostalgia Critic, which I hope you don't, but if you do, he will go through the entire movie and tear it apart scene by scene, and at the end of the movie he'd be like, well, it wasn't bad, but not good. It's gonna... I'm sorry, but it's kind of gonna be like that, because I'm gonna go through not everything in painstaking detail, but I'm going to go through the story and stuff, and how I felt about that part of the game, or, how it was in general. So just bear with me. If you don't want to hear the entire game, then, that's fine. You can just skip to the end where I say, okay, so we're good? We got that out of the way? Let's rock and roll. So anyways, Village is set almost 4 years after the events in 7. Ethan and Mia are still trying to cope with the trauma they went through in Louisiana, rightfully so. I mean, that was spooky as hell. They now have a 6-month-old daughter named Rosemary, and Mia proves to be Mother of the Year as she reads her infant child a horrifying fairy tale book. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and say that something interesting about this book, though, is it kind of plays in with the story itself. I mean, obviously, they wouldn't show it for no reason. They wouldn't show this Tim Burton shit for absolutely nothing at all. The monsters that the girl encounters in the book mirrors the lords that we will meet later on. But I'm getting ahead of myself, The lords, that's... Whew, I'm going too fast here, I need to slow down, but I'm just saying, it was pretty cool. Anyways, we are shown that Ethan, I own 20 rugs in my home Winters, is still not over the mold incident in Louisiana, and tries to talk it out with Mia, who is more so blocking it out, and is trying to move on, but Ethan claims he wants to be cautious, and is like, maybe we should talk about this. I mean, that was a pretty big deal. Oh, and also, yeah, the Winters, for some reason, have an absurd amount of rugs in their place. I just thought I'd bring that up for no other reason than it's hilarious. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? Jesus. Oh, 13. Wait, did I count that one? You know, if you lose track of counting rugs in your home, that's how you know you're going a bit bonkers. Wait, what is this? Is this 14, 15? I don't know, 16 rugs.
Almost there, honey.
Too many goddamn rugs. 17, 18, 19. Anyways, during all this time, the Winters have been moved from place to place and have been under the protection of Chris Redfield. You know, the same Chris Redfield who I confidently said was not the real Chris Redfield. I mean, can you blame me? The Chris Redfield I know has to turn sideways to fit into a doorway. This guy legit looks like the bad guy. Spoiler alert for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. He looks like the bad guy in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. He looks so much better in Resident Evil 8. He looks more like Chris. He's even got his big shoulders back. And we get to see Chris, because when things are starting to feel a little bit normal for the Winters at last, and Ethan's about to have his daily dinner argument with Mia about Louisiana, Chris and his men just blast Mia away, and you're like, oh, no, not Mia. Everybody loves Mia. Which is also Ethan's reaction. You know, he just seems more so annoyed by this shit. So after that huge inconvenience that Ethan just had to witness, Rose is being taken away by Chris and his men. And you would think that after busting into somebody's home, murdering their wife big time, and then kidnapping their daughter, you would think that there's something very important going on that you should tell that person about, like, hey man, here's what's going on, sorry about that. So the game begins because Ethan gets knocked out. And we all know that when Ethan gets knocked out, the game begins. But first we have to have a flashback where Mia is being super vague. As I said, everybody is holding back this super necessary information that should have been mentioned to Ethan way before Village. But that's way later on. It's stupid. It's so stupid. But I gotta hold off on that. She says she's not worried about Rose's health. So Ethan's like, well, what are you worried about? And she doesn't answer because we need game. We need mystery. Or should I say, Mia-stery. Yeah. That was flawless.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Ethan wakes up and he's surrounded by death already because the vehicle that they were being transported in was attacked and it crashed, and now we're in this spooky dark forest. So now the Silent Hill search for Ethan's daughter begins. Now I'll say the atmosphere does not disappoint in the first few minutes of this game. It's dark and slow, painfully slow, but you appreciate it. That's the thing about horror games. You gotta appreciate the build-up. It doesn't last long, but oh well. You know nothing is gonna happen immediately because you just started. Yet you can't help but still tense up and hold your breath as you move forward into a dark, ominous basement. I'll also add that playing with headphones is highly recommended. The sound design in this game is amazing. Every branch that snaps in the distance makes you turn nervously thinking something is about to attack. The creaking of the old houses from the cold winds make it feel so alive, yet empty. That makes no sense, but I try to sound cool there. Point is, the sounds in Village really help put you in the world. There's a fake-out scare with a rat, and shit goes on upstairs, so naturally Ethan makes his way upstairs, and he crawls in a pool of blood, and is like, that's weird, what happened here? And before you know it, there it is. A beautiful shot of the Village, and it looks incredible as expected. The RE engine has really been making these games look absolutely stunning. Did it make my PS4 wheeze the entire time? Yes, but it was worth it. I look forward to seeing what else Capcom can do with this engine. Visually, they're all gonna look great, but as far as the games themselves, let's hope for something good, yeah? At this point, you're chomping at the bit for something to happen, and next thing you know, this poor old guy gets clapped in seconds, and Ethan finds himself yet again dealing with more hand torture. Poor guy can never catch a break. He gets his hand all messed up, and now he has to fight a bullshit horde of lichens until they all fuck off for bingo, I guess. Now there's a moment of peace to calmly explore the village and wonder, what the hell's going on here? Well, to be honest, even after playing the game, I'm still a bit confused about everything. But who plays this series to give a piping hot damn about the plot anyways? This is a Capcom game after all. So after meeting some of the villagers who'd literally die in like 3 minutes to drop a sliver of exposition, we finally reach Castle... here we go. Dimitrescu. Listen, I know I probably butchered her name. I'm gonna butcher a lot of these names, but come on, cut me some slack. I'm not European. I don't plan on being European, so I'm doing my best here. All you need to know is that she's the 10-foot-tall vampire lady with ballistics too. There we attend a family meeting, which Ethan is a huge fan of being invited to dysfunctional, insane family dinners and such. And we wake up, and you notice some weird characters that all look like they belong in different games. Turns out these are the 4 lords of the village who serve under and are the adopted children of the feared but also praised Mother Miranda. Our first stop is Lady D. She's the one that the internet went berserk over, and Capcom kind of made her seem like the main villain who will have so much to do with the game, yet she's only here for a super brief amount of time. And she is possibly the worst pursuer in any RE game. She's intimidating, don't get me wrong. She does a shit ton of damage when she catches you. But she's incredibly slow. All you gotta do is go through multiple doors and she'll slow down by seconds, and you're already at the next place you need to be. Not to mention her daughters are easy as hell to kill. Crack open a window and blast away until they crumble like the granola bar in the butterfly effect. And just like that, the castle is over. Do this and that, fight some annoying bug bitches, lightly jog away from Lady D. Oh yeah, and chill with the merchant too. I forgot to mention. We got a merchant in this game who is called the Duke, and he's the best thing ever. Even makes a fun little nod to our beloved RE4, which, I'm not gonna lie, put a stupid little smile on my stupid little face. Of course, before we leave, we gotta fight Lady D. But man, even her final form is a joke, which becomes a pattern with most of the Lord's boss battles in this game. It's incredibly easy, but that doesn't mean it's not fun. Just run in a circle and snipe her when she's in the air, and that's it. She tells Ethan before she dies that he is never going to see Rose ever again. This makes him a little bit sad, but he still pursues. She had her 15 minutes of fame, and now we move on. Again, still fun, but disappointing how quick you can run through it. So after miraculously surviving a massive fall, Ethan then finds a flask and is like, oh, I could sell this. And the Duke is like, you might want to hold on to that because that's your daughter. And Ethan is like, nah. And the Duke is like, yeah. And then Ethan's like, oh wow, that's kind of messed up. Who would do such a thing? And he learns there's 3 more flasks that contain parts of his daughter, and the other lords have them. So you know what that means. An entire squad of armed men and a trained professional in his late 40s who has been dealing with unimaginable horrors and BOWs for over 20 years sit back and scratch their armored asses while an angry Texan with a Ninja Turtle hand plows through ghouls and werewolves to single-handedly clap each individual lord to get all the pieces he needs to assemble his daughter like Exodia. If that doesn't convince you that Ethan is a good protagonist, I don't know what will. Speaking of the lords, we now move on to what I personally think is the best but also worst part of the game. I haven't been more terrified to proceed through a game than I did with the Beneviento house. I was so scared to move through it, I had to have someone else join me in a call as I walked through it. And even then, I was super hesitant to move forward. It's dark, it makes you feel tense, and you even got some ring shit going on at some point, which I am not a fan of the ring, so seeing that, I was not a happy camper. But it just added that nice little layer of fear that I already had going. It got me good, and I wish I had more footage of it, but sadly I don't. And I won't go back to get it. I promised I won't go through that shit again. But all I'll say is PT fans are in for a treat. It's a subtle but nice little homage to it. It was the scariest thing in Resi in a very long time, and I applaud it for fueling my nightmares for the next few months. That praise quickly disintegrates when you get to Donna's boss. And I use that word lightly because it hardly is one. It's a game of hide and seek. You have to find this ugly-ass psycho doll. Ignore how I said that, it'll make sense later. I swear. You have to hunt down this doll named Angie, who Donna controls. I think, I'm not very clear on that. And you just stab her a couple times, get a good jab in there with some scissors. She puts up no fight, there's no real danger around you. I mean, yeah, the dolls, like, if you don't find her in a certain amount of time, they'll, like, jump up and stab you, but you'll be fine. And after 3 times, she dies, and you see an unmasked Donna, who also only has, like, 2 lines, maybe 3 lines of dialogue in the whole game. There's no real boss fight, or even really any idea as to who she was or anything. Really a huge letdown. Next up on Ethan's hit list is Salvatore Moreau, a blobfish-looking creature who is seen as nothing more than a disgusting fish monster and is laughed at by his adopted siblings. You kind of feel bad for him, like, the whole time. He only wants the approval and love of his false mother, but can't stop throwing up, so she doesn't want to be near that nasty shit. Honestly, seeing Moreau again after the family meeting is one of my favorites, because he's just sitting there, watching static on his TV. He's just a simple, sad, strange little man. I almost thought that Ethan was literally gonna grab the flask and walk off, and that was the level. It wouldn't have surprised me after that so-called boss previously. Alas, we do have to fight poor old Moreau, who becomes Delago the sequel and claims he's the best and still tries to seek his mother's attention by stopping Ethan and getting rid of him. But before all that, Chris shows up and is still refusing to tell Ethan anything. Come on, Chris, the poor bastard is already here and has wiped out half the lords and you still think you can't let him be involved? I swear, the whole dancing around the twist thing is like pulling teeth and makes no sense. Even later on, Chris is like, yeah, maybe I should have told him right away. Again, they are separated, and I am telling the truth here. This part of the game is the only time I died because you have to be so precise with this puzzle thing, and he runs so slow in the water crossing the platforms that you can easily get killed. Half the time, I didn't even know how I died. It was so annoying, but finally you get through all that, drain his precious water, and the fight begins. A little bit more challenging like a real fight should be, but still simple and quick. And again, you even feel bad for him after it's all done, but at this point, I was still fuming over dying 5 times trying to cross those timed platforms. I was ready to leave and face the final, and best Lord left.
In death as he was in life. Disgusting.
Heisenberg, whose first name is Carl, but that isn't really threatening, so we'll just call him Heisenberg. He's described as the most dangerous of them all. He's smarter, wittier, handsomer, and well, just overall the coolest. I mean, look at him.
He's away!
Brother, shut the fuck up! Shut your fucking hole! Sorry about that. Lady, supersized bitch. Ugly ass psycho doll. An embryonic freak.
You could smell the tobacco and rusty garage smell coming off him. That's the kind of guy you want to blast Pearl Jam on the porch with and chug the nastiest beers together, just shooting the shit. Hell, he even tries to team up with you, but Ethan, love the guy, is an absolute gormless buffoon and declines. Sure, he wants to use your infant as a weapon, and he might have betrayed you in the end, but he seemed like he was sincerely trying to warn Ethan about Miranda, and this whole thing has been a test to become part of her family. And we all know how Ethan feels about being welcomed into families. I'll say it again, the team up might have been a really bad idea because you can't trust the guy, he's a villain. But I would have loved to have seen that team up. If this was a Telltale game, I can guarantee you, half of the people who played this game would have chosen the option to team up with Heisenberg. Even if it ended badly, it would have been something else to see, it would have been interesting. But instead, Ethan pisses Heisenberg off and gets tossed down into a hole. We have a short little chase with this Texas Chainsaw monstrosity, and we end up in Heisenberg's factory, and it's our goal to get the hell out, because this place is just crawling with tetanus and ghouls with VR headsets, so we gotta get out of here. Also, I should mention, before I get any further, that before Heisenberg, you have to go through this lichen horde again, which is actually a blast if you know what you're doing and strategize. But this bullet sponge hammer-wielding asshole shows up, and you're stuck in the tiniest room they could have made and forced to go toe-to-toe with this evil Hagrid. And when I say bullet sponge, I mean it. He doesn't even flinch unless you throw explosives at him. So getting through that finally was a huge relief, but man was it some tedious shit, and that becomes the rest of the game. Tedious shit. So anyways, we got a daughter to glue back together, so there's no time to waste. Going through the factory, we come across multiple versions of new enemies. Each are not too difficult to take out since they got a bright red weakness exposed. I can't even be bothered to talk about them because they're all the same, but as you go on, they have two drills on their arms or are heavily armored. They're just there to block the way you need to go and pretend they're menacing. Also, you gotta love when Ethan's commentary is just stating the obvious.
It's dark.
You do all this running around the factory, putting stuff into a mold machine thing, fight possibly my favorite mini-boss in the whole game, just because it's so silly but kind of fun. Guess you could say I'm a fan of it. You get to the top at last, only for Heisenberg to put your dirty ass back to the bottom, but that's okay. We find Chris again. Funny how we always meet him where we have to be, but he has shown zero progress in taking care of the dangerous abominations outside that Ethan has been dealing with. At least he finally tells us what the hell is going on. Turns out, the Mia we saw get turned into Swiss cheese in the beginning was actually Mother Miranda disguising as Mia. She infiltrated the Winters' home with the intentions of stealing Rose in an attempt to resurrect her lost child of her own. The lords we have come across were all products of Miranda taking them away and manipulating them into becoming her false children. She planted a virus, or megamycete as it's referred to as, called Kado. I don't know how to pronounce it, but oh well. But they all failed to be proper vessels to bring back her daughter. At least, that's what I could gather, but Chris only explains that Miranda is bad and we gotta stop her. Now it's time for the best boss battle in the whole game. It's still a joke, don't get me wrong, it's not as hard as I was anticipating it to be. What happens is Ethan hops in this mobile weapon to fight Heisenberg, and whew, look at him go. It's not terrible, not good, but it's okay, it's good enough for me after what I've been through. It does go on for a bit, and the amount of times I heard him say the same dialogue over and over, it got old pretty quick.
Too bad I'm your only fan. Too bad I'm your only fan. Too bad I'm your only fan. Too bad I'm your only fan.
Oh, but of course, I gotta point out a callback to a good RE game that I would rather be playing in that moment. So thanks Capcom for reminding me.
That boulder punching asshole. But you're first.
You know the drill. Heisenberg is defeated, Ethan is ready to move on to the final baddie in the game, and he dies. Yeah, Ethan gets his heart ripped out, and we see his model for the first time in-game, just lifeless. I'll admit, I was shocked. I was genuinely upset. I couldn't believe what just happened, and now I'm playing as Chris? It took me by surprise, and I needed a minute to process that. Well, after that moment of heartache, pun possibly intended, Chris is now playable, and it just feels weird to play as him in first person. I didn't play his DLC for 7, so it was new to me and just felt off. But he has the best gun in the game, so I wasn't bitching for long. Until we get up to this freaking laser beam shit, and again, fight another giant hammer-wielding asshole. But luckily it didn't nearly last as long as the first one, because this is Chris we're talking about. Shine a flashlight on him a couple of times and boom, dunzo. Still doesn't mean I didn't get heated though. He plants an explosive on the source and walks off cause explosions are tradition in this series, you know. He finds a room filled with exposition and backstory and the biggest goddamn stretch ever. Seriously, the way they try to connect Village with everything else, even as far back to the first game, is bad. It's stretching further than Michael Jordan at the end of Space Jam. Resident Evil is not known for its captivating story or its cast of totally unique characters, but this is just trying too hard, and it's not working, Chief. Oh, and when things couldn't get any stinkier, Mia is still alive and is yet again stuck in a cell. She just can't stay away from him. Chris informs her Ethan is dead as fuck, and Mia says he ain't because Ethan is special. We cut back to Ethan who isn't dead, only he is. Here's where it gets tricky. Are you guys ready for this? Cause I sure as hell wasn't. Ethan is in this purgatory and sees Evelyn, who is being the typical evil little girl that she is, and drops this bomb on him and is all like, "Oh, you died 3 years ago. Jack Baker killed you, but you were regenerated by the mold." I shit you not. You guys know that old meme of the blonde guy who like blinks and shakes his head? That was me. I imagine that can be relevant to Ethan's reaction too. Just, wow. This whole time, ever since the beginning of 7, we've been playing as molded Ethan Winters, and Mia knew about it. The flashback from the start of the game wasn't about her worrying over what she passed down to Rose, since she was at one point infected by the mold. She was worried about what Ethan passed to Rose. So if that has been the case all along, and your regenerated moldy husband possibly helped you birth the successor to the psycho brat from Resident Evil 7, I feel like that very important information would be necessary to tell him ages ago. Hell, probably should have talked about it before the pregnancy. But we can't do anything logical here. We need a twist, baby. And a twist is what we got. Ethan is rightfully shattered by this and wakes up in the back of a carriage that belongs to our dear friend the Duke. Ethan is determined to still save his family despite not doing so hot. You know, with the whole heart being ripped out and also knowing he's not who he thought he was and his bitch of a wife kept that from him this whole time. He still builds as much strength as he can to take care of that bitch Miranda and save his daughter. That means at long last, we're at the end of the game. And at this point, I'm ready to be done with it. The Duke and Ethan say goodbye, and Ethan catches up to Miranda, and the most bullshit ass crack of a boss fight occurs. At least for me, because I only had 1 health and hardly anything. She was tough and took a shit ton of damage. It was hard at first to dodge her attacks because for some reason, this game loves shoving you in a tiny space where it's hard to run around and avoid damage, and the boss is huge and takes up half the area. I died an embarrassing amount of times. It took me way too long to beat. That's why this review is a little bit late. I was doing so good up to that point, and I feel like it would have been easy to get through had I had more health bottles, but no. And the Duke wasn't coughing up anymore in his shop, so I was in a tight spot. I ended up being at the end of my rope and desperate to beat her. I sold all my weapons except the Magnum, grenade launcher, and I bought a more powerful shotgun. Even then, it still took me multiple tries. I was pulling my hair out. Until finally, there it was. A new animation and a command to just start blasting her. Finally, I beat Miranda, and I could see what ending was in store for me after all that hard work and tears. What I got? More tears and disappointment. After all Ethan went through, and pushing through the end barely alive, he gets to Rose, and he begins to deteriorate and falls to his knees. The perspective changes, and we see his model yet again, his face still hidden from the player, and Chris finally decides maybe he should help Ethan. But it's too late, and he's too weak. He knows he can't make it out, so he says goodbye to Rose, and passes her off to Chris, asking him to watch over her, and gives Rose his jacket. Ethan then takes Chris's detonator and sacrifices himself to stay behind, and gives us our traditional Resident Evil explosive ending. It's a bummer, really. I give Ethan a lot of shit as a character, but I didn't expect him to, nor did I want him to be killed off. However, he died before apparently, so maybe this isn't the last time we see him. It's not over yet, because we can't end the game without escaping on a helicopter. Mia weeps over the loss of her husband, and Chris swears that someone will pay, and they fly off into the sunset. A song not as good as Go Tell Aunt Rhody plays over the credits, as we get the imagery from the story Miranda Mia read to Rose at the start. This time, we see the ending to the story, and it once again mirrors the ending to Ethan's story. It's an ending that left me feeling empty and pretty disappointed. Not that Capcom is good with endings, most of the time they're abrupt. But I just don't know how to feel besides, well, okay. But if you stay after the credits, you get a little something extra. A time skip, and we see Rosemary all grown up and sporting her dad's jacket. She's on her way to visit his grave and have a chat before she's picked up by some mysterious man in a suit. The asshole makes the mistake of calling her Evelyn, and Rose threatens him, claiming she can do things that not even Chris is aware she can do. And I think a sniper radios the douche and is ready to take her out, and the guy just says, she's only a kid, calm down, broski. But that just makes you think that Rose is possibly very dangerous still, and is constantly being monitored. Perhaps the tests she mentioned are lab tests. They're trying to use her as an experiment, Or maybe keep her abilities under control. Who knows? But that little outburst reminds the suit of Ethan, and she smiles saying she knows. What, hot-headed and bland? Yeah, I can see it. But really, sucks that Ethan is killed off, and now we got a pretty big time skip in the main timeline. Maybe, I don't know what's next. All we know is that the father's story is now done. And that was Resident Evil 8 Village. I pretty much just rambled for 30 minutes and went through the whole game, so sorry about that, but the moment you've all been waiting for, what did I think? And I shall give my final thoughts. After all, this is a review, I should tell you. And well, I feel like it's pretty mediocre. Like, it's just okay. I have no strong positive thoughts about it, and I found myself speaking negatively about it most of the time. But that doesn't mean I hated it. I just didn't care for it much either way. Is it fun? It can be. I enjoyed the combat and shooting as much as I did in 7. I feel like it was a bit better, actually. The puzzles aren't head-scratchers, but I thought the mini maze puzzles with the ball was cute. There are improvements from the last game that I am pleased with, such as an improved inventory system that you can upgrade to a bigger size for bigger and better weapons, and the Duke is a nice addition that I welcomed. Being able to sell treasures and such like in 4 adds more to the game and gives a little piece of Resi that we love. It's a lot better than saving up your coins so that you can put it in a birdcage so you can get a weapon and customizable parts for it. It's nice to be able to go to a merchant and exchange your treasures that you found for coins so you're able to buy weapons and upgrade them to their maximum amount. That means that if you didn't get all the weapons you wanted on the first run, you can always go back and keep an eye out for more treasures you may have missed to fully upgrade your weapons and get everything you need. The replay value is there, but I don't see myself returning to this game anytime soon. Which reminds me, Capcom can be pretty rewarding when it comes to beating their games. So when I tried to do a New Game Plus, I just had my inventory from when I beat the game. You know, when I sold all my weapons except for the ones that don't get ammo until halfway through the game. Yeah, rough. But apparently if you play their challenges, mercenaries, and other difficulties, you can gain more and more rewards. Even a lightsaber, which is... I can't even express my thoughts on that. But I ain't gonna milk this game dry for infinite weapons and a lightsaber. I had a solid time with the game, but I didn't have that much fun with it to want to do it again and again. Overall, it's not terrible, but in my personal opinion, it's not anything to write home about. Again, I didn't hate it. I just don't know. Which is disappointing because 7 was really good. It was new, it was different, maybe too different, but you take a look at Village, and there's so much going on at once, it feels like multiple games in one, which you'd think wouldn't be a complaint. But in this case, it just seems so out of place. And the stretch for it to connect to everything wasn't well executed. Again, at least in my opinion. I'm not gonna bash people for liking this game, that's something you shouldn't do to anybody about any game. I can see why people loved Village, and I can see why some people absolutely hated it. And I'm on the side of, I don't love it, I don't like it, I played it, it was an experience, and I'm glad that I did, but it was okay. That's about all I can say for it. I mean, it seems confusing, I know, but the game itself is confusing. I don't know how to feel. And I'm not saying it was confusing as in, like, plot-wise. I mean, yeah, it was confusing, but again, I'll say it multiple times, Capcom can't write. It's fine. I'm talking about it has me confused in a way that throughout the game, it was up and down for me. One minute I was having fun, I was invested, next minute I'm cursing and I'm hating every second of it. I'm scratching my head like that doesn't make any sense, this is stupid, this is a joke. And then I was having fun again, I was liking it, and then I was back down again. It's a roller coaster for sure as to how I felt. And that's all I can say. That's where I leave it. Do I recommend this game? Of course I do. Play it. Try it for yourself. Or if you can't play it, watch a playthrough of it. I would say it's worth it. Just because in the end it wasn't my cup of tea doesn't mean that nobody else should be able to enjoy it. Normally I don't do ratings on this channel. I don't think I do. It's been a while, I know. But if I were to give it a rating out of 10, I would probably give it a solid 6 out of 10. So after all that talking, 30 minutes of me going through every individual section of the game, only for me to say the game was okay, I'm still excited to see what's next in the series, because the ending kinda makes you question, what's next? For now, it's apparently Resident Evil 4 for the VR, which sounds totally made up, but it's real. Trust me, I thought it was too. But hey, I think I kept you guys here long enough. I think it's safe to end the video here. This is probably the longest video I've ever done, so I hope that you were able to enjoy it, even if some parts felt like you just couldn't sit through it anymore. If you made it to the end, thank you. And if you left a long time ago, wise choice. That being said, thank you guys for watching, if you did, and goodbye.
Don't you look away. Just try to stay as long as you can. Yeah. Just hold my hand and we'll make